Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need what has turned into a little bit of a series, the next edition, the next episode, in what has become the series that I like to call, Seriously, Where Are the Dragon Pokemon? Because I'm sorry, at this stage things are getting a little bit weird. We have mentioned this topic before here, but we are months further forward now, with a whole bunch more information, so it is very much worth looking at. Now, the background here, of course, is that leading into the release of the Sword and Shield expansion, we were told officially that fairy Pokemon are being dropped. We're not getting any new fairy Pokemon. Some people have questioned why basic fairy energy still got printed in Sword and Shield, and there is a new type, well, not a new type, but, a new artwork of fairy energy printed in Sword and Shield, and the reason is we've still got fairy energy now. And to be honest with you, fairy Pokemon themselves aren't going to rotate until next year, August, September 2021, when we move to Sword and Shield on rotation and all the fairy Pokemon are gone. So I'm not terribly confused as to why we're getting fairy energy, but it was officially announced by Pokemon that fairy Pokemon are gone, that we are not getting any more in the TCG. Fine. Here's the thing though. If they were also getting rid of Dragon Pokemon, it seems like it really would have been very easy to go, oh yeah, no, we're getting rid of fairy Pokemon and we're getting rid of Dragon. But they didn't. They specifically chose not to. So that would tell us quite clearly that we're not getting rid of Dragon Pokemon. It would seem like Pokemon have told us, in no uncertain terms, no. Don't worry your pretty little heads about it. Dragon Pokemon are fine, they're staying around. So where are all the Dragon Pokemon? Now look, at this stage you don't probably need me to tell you that we've had no new Dragon Pokemon released in Sword and Shield. Hasn't happened. You can go to Sword and Shield, you can go to Rebel Clash, you can go to Explosive Walker. That is the one set that has come out in Japan that, as it stands at the moment, we've not really seen any cards from outside of Japan. That will be in Darkness Ablaze in August. And we've seen a bunch of promos, and in all of those sets, we have not seen a single solitary Dragon Pokemon. But it's not just that. It's more than that. It's the fact that not only have we not seen any Dragon Pokemon, but we have seen a number of Pokemon that should be Dragon Pokemon, or that could be Dragon Pokemon, that have been printed as non-Dragon Pokemon. Now, the one thing we don't have yet is a pure Dragon-type Pokemon. And I'll be honest with you, right, in the Gen 8 Pokedex, in the Sword and Shield Pokedex, there are very few pure Dragon Pokemon. We've essentially got the Haxorus line, the Goodra line, and Jangmo-o. Not the evolutions of Jangmo-o, mind you, just Jangmo-o itself, which is slightly strange. Now, if those Pokemon get printed, and I've been on record as saying on this channel, if we lose Dragon Pokemon, I am utterly convinced that they will become colourless Pokemon that are weak to colourless, like we saw on things like Garchomp and Garchomp C back in the day. So this all makes perfect sense to me. Well, it makes perfect sense what they will be if they go away. Why we haven't seen any actually makes very little sense to me. Why have they not printed Goodra and Haxorus and Jangmo-o? I mean, on the one hand, they're not the most popular Pokemon ever. On the other hand, there was a Kommo-o line in Cosmic Eclipse. And there was a Goodra line. Well, we haven't actually had one of them since Forbidden Light, so it's been a little while since we got a Goodra. And Haxorus again has come around fairly recently in Unified Minds. So these aren't Pokemon that never appear. It really would not be out of the ordinary for these Pokemon to come around at this stage. When we see one, if we see one, then we will have our answer. For now, we're still kind of running around in the dark a little bit without the answers we're looking for. But we can plot a course through the Sword and Shield releases so far and see that Pokemon are doing everything they can to avoid Dragon Pokemon. Over in Sword and Shield, there were 2 potentially Dragon Pokemon that we saw. There was a Turtonator and there was a Drampa. But you see, Drampa is actually a normal Dragon Pokemon. Primary type normal, secondary type Dragon. And Turtonator is a Fire Dragon Pokemon. Primary type Fire, secondary type Dragon. So actually, I kind of understand how that could be. You know, I understand why they would come around as non-Dragon Pokemon. So I'm not terribly upset with them. Moving into Rebel Clash, however, things get a little bit weirder. Now, Flapple and Appleton, again, I don't particularly mind. Flapple and Appleton make perfect sense to me. They are both Grass, primary type, and Dragon as a secondary type. Incidentally, both very good cards. Flapple lets you drop 2 damage counters on a Pokemon, and then shuffle it back into its deck ready to use it again. You know that people are going to be able to stream that ability. And then Appleton has got the Pokemon Catcher on a basic ability, which is flip a coin if heads, drag one of your opponent's basic Pokemon from the bench into the active. Both pretty cool cards that I do expect to see a whole bunch of play. But they could have easily been Dragon Pokemon. Pokemon just chose not to make them Dragon. I mean, one thing I find very interesting, if we have a look at general regular Drampa cards, we have seen, prior to Sword and Shield, 4 Drampa cards, only one of which, the one from Ultra Prism, actually came around as colourless, and then we got a colourless one in Sword and Shield. I don't know if there's necessarily anything we can dig in there. The sample size is incredibly small, but it is something to bear in mind here. So Sword and Shield gave us no dragons, but it wasn't the weirdest thing ever. And Rebel Clash gave us Flapple and Appleton, but again, that wasn't too weird. Similarly, Rebel Clash gave us Duraludon, and it is worth noting, Duraludon has also been released as a promo card. We have had 2 Duraludon in the Sword and Shield expansions, and they've both been a metal type, rather than coming around as dragon type. But then again, this is also quite understandable, because Duraludon is primary metal type, secondary dragon type. So even though we've had 2 and they were both metal, I mean, we could look at something like Empoleon, for instance. I mean, if we steal this graphic from Bulbapedia, we can see that of all the Empoleon that we've had released over the years, we had a metal one in Stormfront and a metal one in Forbidden Light, though do remember the metal one from Forbidden Light was actually an alternate type reprint of a card that was initially water type, which also starts looking a little bit unfair, quite frankly. And actually, secondary typing sometimes just don't get a lot of play. Sometimes a Pokemon's secondary typing is all but ignored, so maybe we shouldn't be terribly upset. Now, we could also look over in the Grimmsnarl VMAX deck, which has only been released over in Japan at the moment. But one of the things you see in there was an exclusive Hydreigon card only available in that deck, which actually has a really nice ability letting you attach as much darkness energy during your turn as you like, which is very cool. And that's a darkness type. But again, we're talking about a primary Darkness-type Pokemon with a secondary typing of Dragon, so once more it's fairly understandable. Although I say that, again, if we steal this graphic from Bulbapedia, we can see that it generally came around as a Dragon Pokemon 2/3 of the time. If we look pre-Sword and Shield, we can see that Hydreigon actually came around with 6 Dragon cards, and only 4 Darkness cards. It's even at 4 apiece if you take out the special cards like EXs and Breaks. So maybe starting to look a tiny bit weirder here. And if we stick in promos for a moment, there was the promo Rayquaza, which has come out in Sword and Shield as a promo. Weirdly enough, Rayquaza isn't actually in the Generation X Pokedex, not usually, but then again, it's Rayquaza, it's a little bit special. Rayquaza does often come around as a colourless Pokemon, as it is here. And similarly, Rayquaza, we're not terribly upset about it being a colourless Pokemon. I mean, Rayquaza generally is a flying type, secondary type dragon, so we're kind of alright with that. But what's really egregious to me is Dragapult. Dragapult is where I start looking at this going, come on a second, come on. Because you see, in Rebel Clash, we got both Dragapult as a psychic Pokemon, and Dragapult V and VMAX as a psychic Pokemon. And this is the point to me where I think it starts becoming a little bit inexcusable. Because you know what? This is a primary dragon type. Now this is interesting to me, because it is actually the first time in the trading card game, and the second and the third all rolled into one, that we've had a primary dragon Pokemon printed in Sword and Shield. This is the first primary dragon Pokemon we've seen, and we've seen multiple prints of it, and they are all dragon type. And this is the part where I start looking at it going, no. No! I'm sorry, this doesn't make sense to me. Dragapult should be a dragon Pokemon. It is, I mean, in every game, right, we get the dragon Pokemon, the pseudo-legendary, the big stage 2 that we can only find near the end of the game. The headline dragon Pokemon, that's Dragapult in Sword and Shield. Why is it not a dragon type? And I think it would be a fair comparison here to start comparing it to Kommo-o. Kommo-o is a Stage 2 primary dragon secondary fighting Pokemon that came around in Gen 7. It was the Generation 7 equivalent of Dragapult. And if we have a look at Kommo-o in the TCG, it's only ever been a dragon type. Now, to be fair, Jangmo-o, the pre-evolution, is pure dragon. Maybe that has something to do with it. But it's still looking a little bit strange. And that leaves me in a state of frank confusion. Because we should have dragon Pokemon. And I don't see a terribly strong argument for not having dragon Pokemon. And yet I'm sitting here recording this video and we don't have dragon Pokemon. And I don't understand it. Because we don't need dragon Pokemon. We're getting along with them just fine. The only one that really sees any play at the moment is Arceus, Tauga, and Palkia. And that ain't because it's a dragon Pokemon. It's just because it's got the redonkulous attack that means you can take an extra prize for the rest of the game every time you take a KO, while doing an extra 30 damage with all of your attacks for the rest of the game. It's not because it's a dragon Pokemon. But they haven't announced that dragon Pokemon are going away. And they could have done. It would have been very easy to do. They had the perfect opportunity to do so, them being Pokemon, and they chose not to. They chose to keep dragon Pokemon, or at least not get rid of them, when they were getting rid of fairy Pokemon anyway. And they've had plenty of opportunities to print dragon Pokemon. There are a few of them in the Gen 8 Pokedex. And even though I could excuse all of the others, I can't excuse Dragapult. I can understand either the non-V or the V/VMAX being a dragon Pokemon and the other one being psychic, but I honestly don't understand how we can look at them and go, oh yeah, no, it makes sense for the secondary type psychic Pokemon to be entirely psychic in the TCG. Unless we're getting rid of dragon Pokemon. But that then just brings me back to my why have they not actually told us theory. Then again, Kyurem is primary dragon, secondary water. And if we take one more look at one last graphic from Bulbapedia here, we can see that actually, since Dragon Vault came around, since dragon Pokemon were a thing, the first Kyurem was printed in Noble Victories when there was no such thing as dragon Pokemon. We've had 2 dragon, 2 water. So I don't know, maybe this is not that unusual. And then all the Kyurem EX were water type. So maybe we are worrying over nothing. It's still weird though, is it not? I cannot be the only one that thinks this is weird. I hope in the not too distant future I have an answer for you. I hope that the next video I make talking about dragon Pokemon isn't in 2 or 3 months' time, when we've seen a couple more sets and I've got more evidence and I'm going, no, seriously, where are the dragon Pokemon? But as it stands at the moment, all I can do is show you the evidence, talk through. It's not completely out the realm of possibility that this is just a coincidence. Because what we've seen so far is a bunch of secondary type dragons coming in with their ordinary type, their primary type, and a primary type dragon coming through with its first 2 cards non-dragon, which is not completely out the realm of possibility of what I've showed you here. But make no mistake about it, something weird is going on, and I for one would like an answer. And we need to add on to the end of the video here, because since I recorded this video, or at least some of the Pokemon from the upcoming Japanese set Infinity Zone have started to be revealed. One of them is Salamence V. And I'm afraid Salamence V provides some of the most damning evidence so far that dragon Pokemon have gone away. You see, Salamence V has come around, and it is a colourless Pokemon. Now, that's not necessarily completely unforeseeable, because of course Salamence is part flying type. But it is primary dragon, secondary flying. So we would expect it to usually be a dragon, and occasionally be a colourless. Here's the problem. Since Dragon Volt actually came around, we've not seen a colourless Salamence. We've seen colourless Salamence. We saw Salamence level X in Arceus, when dragon Pokemon didn't exist. And obviously we saw plenty of colourless Salamence back when dragon were colourless. But ever since dragon Pokemon came around in Dragon Volt, Plasma Blast, Roaring Skies, the promo, Celestial Storm, they've all been dragon type. The EX and Mega EX were dragon types. The GX was a dragon type. Salamence has not been a dragon type since it's been able to be a dragon type. And yet it's now come through as a colourless. And maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it was due for a colourless type. But at this stage, it is all starting to get mighty suspicious. I think dragon Pokemon might be gone. And I'd like to be wrong about that, as I've said previously in the video. But the fact that we've now got a colourless Salamence, which is another primary type dragon, and one where we do have a big history of, you know what, it's not gonna be printed as anything but dragon Pokemon. I think it's not looking good, ladies and gentlemen. It's not looking good, and I couldn't post this video without bringing you the Salamence update, because unfortunately the Salamence update is rather important. Not good news on which to end the video, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, but all I can do is bring you the news that we have. Like I said a minute ago, hopefully there'll be an update in the future and I'll be able to bring you a new video showing you all about the lovely dragon Pokemon we are getting, but for now, I don't have an answer. If you think you do have an answer though, well, there is a comment section, so might I suggest you go nuts while requesting that you be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.